The bilateral between the Indian Prime Minister Modi with the UK Prime Minister has begun. It will be followed by bilaterals with leaders of Japan and Germany. In the evening, Prime Minister Modi will have a bilateral with the Italian Prime Minister. But all eyes on this particular bilateral, as Gaurav pointed out. Rishi Sunak has been the darling of the Indian media for sure. He's released a video as well on his visit. He and his wife Akshata Murthy have gone to both the Akshardham temple and as well, or are planning to go to both the Akshardham temple and the Humayun's tomb. They took a little stroll in Lachins, Delhi yesterday. And right now, an official bilateral on between Rishi Sunak, who the Prime Minister received with a firm handshake and a hug. And that bilateral on. Also want to pull in Polumi Saha, who's reporting from the Bharat Mandapam, as well as our managing editor, Gaurav Sawant, who continues to be with us. Polumi, what we are given to understand right now, the bilateral with the UK Prime Minister has begun. It will be followed by bilaterals with leaders of Japan, Germany, and then later on Italy.
That's right. There are 4 bilaterals that are slotted for today. There are 2 windows for bilaterals, Preeti. One, of course, which opened at 1:30 this afternoon when the first session, One Earth, got over. So that window is from 1:30 to 3 p.m. And the second window is a very small window, and hence you have only one bilateral which is slotted for that time, which is about 4:45 p.m. this evening to 5:30 p.m. this evening. Of course, all eyes on the bilateral with UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, especially because of the voices, that have emerged from Downing Street, especially Rishi Sunak, and what he's categorically stated ahead of his visit to New Delhi in terms of how he would want to press the Indian government and Prime Minister Modi to, in fact, ensure that there are strictures applied in the way that the language is framed in the Delhi Declaration around the Russia-Ukraine war. Remember, he has very recently met with the Ukrainian President Zelensky, and Rishi Sunak is not mincing his words when he says that he actually used very strong words when he said that Putin doesn't have a face to show, and that's exactly why he's not coming to this summit. He wants to press all of the leaders in terms of Russia's withdrawal from the Black Sea Grain Initiative, where Russia basically pulled out because it felt that the Western countries were placing sanctions on it so that it couldn't export more of its agricultural produce, which eventually basically led to inflation in food prices. And Rishi Sunak wants everyone on the same page. The Indian Prime Minister, of course, is expected to, we don't have a confirmation, an official confirmation on what he's expected to raise, but we do believe that he will be raising the Khalisani threat in the United Kingdom to, of course, Indians residing there, to diplomats. We've seen, of course, the Khalisani protests at the British High Commission in London as well. And that is something that Prime Minister Modi will be stressing upon in his bilateral meeting. These are not exactly structured bilateral meetings, because you can imagine the window is very small, but they're not politicized either. They are bilateral meetings, and very important at that as well, Preeti.
Polumi, stay on with us. Polumi is right before the UK Prime Minister came in, he did tweet out suggesting that, yes, he's here to talk business, but what's happening in Ukraine is also on top agenda. Later on, of course, he has tweeted out a video of the warm welcome that he received in India and his time here. But let's also listen to Rishi Sunak when he came in speaking to the Indian media.
Well, I think the bilateral relationship is in good health, and Prime Minister Modi and I are keen to deepen and broaden our relationship. The FTA is an obvious way for us to do that, which is why it remains our priority. And as I said, hard work to go, but I hope we can conclude a successful FTA. I think we can strengthen our security relationship as well. That's something that I've spoken to the Prime Minister about. And then something I'm particularly excited about is increasing the collaboration between our incredible researchers, our scientific community, our universities. The UK and India are 2 of the leading science technology superpowers of the world, and I think if we work more closely together, we can create jobs, create new businesses, and help solve some of the world's most pressing problems. I have enormous respect for Modi ji, and he's been personally very warm and kind to me, and we're working very hard, as I said, on our shared ambition of concluding an ambitious and comprehensive trade deal between India and the UK, because both of us think that would be a good thing, and both of us need to make sure it works for our two countries. And at forums like this, I'm very keen to support Prime Minister Modi in making sure that this G20 is an enormous success for India, which I know it will be, and this has been a great year for India more generally. I think there'll be many things that we'll be discussing here at the G20 under India's leadership, and I'm confident that we'll make very good progress on a range of different issues. I think G20 has been a huge success for India. India is the right country at the right time to be hosting this, and I feel we're going to have a very good couple of days of deliberations and decisions made.
All right, so then as we speak, the UK Prime Minister tied in a bilateral with the Indian Prime Minister. I want to quickly pull in Managing Editor Gaurav Sawant back into this conversation as I introduce our guest panel to our viewers. Joining me this afternoon is Prabhu Dayal, former ambassador, author and former diplomat, Skand R. Tayal, former diplomat, adjunct fellow, Institute of Chinese Study, Dr. Vail Awad, senior international journalist. We're going to cut across to Dr. Awad, but Gaurav, I want to bring you in. And let's, once again, talk about India's meeting with Britain, the bilateral, both Prime Minister tied into a bilateral right now. What's on agenda? What is important? Any word coming in what India will put up from its side? Interesting, because when the UK Prime Minister came in, there was a very firm tweet or a message that he gave out that, yes, he's here for business, but Ukraine remains on top agenda. And the Prime Minister today, if we saw, his speech earlier on, there was a clear, firm, sober message encrypted in that as well when it came down to the Ukraine war.
You know, this war in Ukraine has been on since February 2022. So the world has seen what the war so far has yielded and how it's actually damaged not just Russia and Ukraine, but the rest of the world. It's actually impacted for the developing world, at least, food, fuel and fertilizer requirements. So will this continue endlessly, or will an attempt be made to find a just and equitable end to a conflict, or at least look for ways to end it, a ceasefire, dialogue, forward movement? Is that even possible? And that is something that India actually hopes for. In that conversation that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had with the Russian president, he said the era of war is over. Today again the Prime Minister said that the yudh, the war, and that's a very strong word. No longer is India using the word either special operations or just Ukraine. Yeah, yudh. And yudh is leading to a trust deficit. Now that the need is to once again bring in trust. That's the point that India is making. So you notice that there is a shift in India's stance. You also notice, and perhaps we would in the hours ahead, because right now, Preeti, the effort is to find that middle ground so that there is a communique at the end of it, and an actionable communique. Will that actually happen? We would know in the next several hours, but an attempt is to find a solution. If you see what Rishi Sunak has said and what the Prime Minister has said, challenges are immense. Let's all put our heads together. Let's find a solution. There is forward movement there, Preeti.
True that, Gaurav, because, there's so much going on in terms of the optics. The biggest takeaway, no longer G20, G21 now, with the African Union coming in and possibly India playing a big role in that. But having said that, the suspense over what will come off the Delhi Declaration, will there be a joint communique or a statement that is coming out, or will it go down on what possibly went down in Indonesia, where the Bali Declaration was concerned, which there was a declaration, but there was dissent.